today we got to play Brazil Imperial. So this game obviously is we're going to Brazil to, I don't know, develop
the Imperials,
the Imperials, but develop our little colony or whatever.
Loosely, it's a 4X game. Is what
but before we get into it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell because board games are amazing, and I'm super excited about the lineup that we have, and you definitely don't want to miss it. All right, now, Robert, can you tell us a little bit more about Brazil?
I can do that. Imperial. So this is a 2021 release. I think we got this at Gen Con a couple years ago when we got it. Overall rank is 969, went rated at 7.7, plays 1 to 4 people, ages 14 and up, which I can agree with that. There's some complexity to it. Not a lot, but a little bit. 100-minute play time. Designer is Z Mendez. Art by Alberto Junio, Zayas Jr., Carlos Eduardo Justino, and Vinicius Menezes, I believe. Published by Meeple BR. Now, a couple different price points. Now, MSRP is a little pricey at $70, but you can get it way cheaper. Noble Knight's got it at $45. Card House has got it at $47.99. Cheapest version, though, someone's selling it for $25 on Geek Market.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so if you want it, grab that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about quality of components. Now, you have these wooden custom palaces and troops and...
Well, they're custom, not only, the fact that they're carved, but they're different for different factions.
Yeah,
I mean, some of them are the same, but some are different. And, of course, we have one that's misprinted on ours because we've got... Rob's got two of the same one that weren't supposed to be.
Yeah, they're supposed to be. Let me show you the difference. So... even hers is a little different.
No, this one. You're talking about
this one. This one's got a little... Everyone's got a little wheel on the end of theirs. Well, this one does not. So that's the big difference. That little wheel.
Yeah, two of the same. I don't think it... Well, it does kind of matter because one's your base. So
it does.
You have to kind of know which one's the base.
Yeah, and then the gold, they have these really... They actually did the, carving inside of them, which I actually really appreciated. A lot of the components are wood. The cardboard tiles are really thick. I thought they were good with the linen finish on them as well. Your board is it linen finish? It is linen finish. It's just lighter than
everything's
the boards.
linen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, I think they really did.
The only thing that isn't.
The cards are not. They're glossy.
Yeah, the glossy.
They're
cards.
glossy.
So you got the little mini cards. You got weapons, and you got
a full-size cards for your era and your portraits or
the art.
Yeah. But I will say it's a very pretty game. I was not disappointed in the component quality at all. They have great storage systems for your tiles and things like that. So for me, I'm really happy with it. I'm going to give it an 8. What about you guys?
I mean, there's a little... They're not inlaid. It would
no,
be nice if they were inlaid. It looks like there's like shadow, like it should be inlaid.
It kind of looks like it.
But yeah, they would have been nice if the boards were a little inlaid, but it's not a huge deal. I'm probably going to go ahead and give it an 8. I think they do a good job.
Yeah, I'm an 8 too. I agree that I would have given it a better score if there was an inlaid board to it, but oh well. It's not that big a deal.
That's what I was thinking. All right, so now let's move on to theme. So we're off to Brazil.
During the colonial era, I assume.
During the colonial times, I played Queen Victoria myself. And we got to go and start building our settlement. So, very bright colors. Loved it. The artwork was it was realistic, but it was cheerful, right? Because sometimes you get the realistic ones that are a little dreary. That was not the case with this one, so I greatly appreciated it as well. I think the quality of components helped bring that theme into play. When you are building buildings, you are trying to get resource gathering. You do have to deploy your forces to discover things and hopefully get a benefit out of it. Maybe not worth it, but benefit.
As we'll talk about.
So overall, theme-wise, I'm probably going to give this a 7.5.
Well, in addition, there's a history book, which I think is really cool. It goes through all the history of each of the people in it. It goes through the different indigenous people of the area. It's obviously this is a love letter to Brazil. There's people that love the history and culture of that country that made this game. So I can appreciate that. And I like the fact that they carried it through with all the wooden bits. They customized them. I'm assuming they're customized for the different cultures for each of the different nationalities who are
Right.
represented. And then I think all of the pictures and the art is just, it's vibrant, it's pretty. I'm probably going to give it 8 because of all of the history they put into it.
Okay. And I'm even going to go a little bit higher. I'm an 8.5 just because I love the artwork. I love all the custom wooden bits.
But that custom wooden bits kind of goes with quality.
But the reason why though is because, like Randy said, this feels like it's more customized to my faction, so that helps with the theme. It just is a beautiful looking game. It's got some table presence to it. I'm an 8.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll fight you for it.
Well, right. You don't have to. We don't have to go that far. You're already creeping up on my territory. So, all right. So now let's actually talk about the rule book. Now, I think Randy has some complaints about the rule book.
I always have complaints about rule books, but this one is a 24-page rule book and has a nice cover on it. Matches the cover of the box. That goes into kind of the basically all the thank yous on the beginning, message the players kind of telling you about the past and history of this, and then goes into the components. The components, it was a little confusing because there's different tiles that you use, and when during the setup, they didn't really clarify because there's water ones where there's 1 piece and 3 piece, and then there's land tiles that have different patterns of land on them. There's 2 different patterns, and there was no indication differentiating where you should place those. So on the maps that they had set up, they just show 3 spaces connected, but there's 2 colors. Like there's a lighter green and a darker green, but they don't assign which one's which. So we just basically placed them all down. There was nothing to tell you where
and they're all 2-sided, right?
But they're the same on both sides.
Well, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just whether you orient them differently. Not to mention, there was a lot of shuffling through the manual to find things. So, there was the sequencing was a little confusing.
Yeah, it was hard for you to find stuff when we had to look it up.
Whenever we had to look it up, there's no cheat sheets. There's no place that it's gathered in a logical manner.
For the record, no cheat sheets. Hard.
Very difficult with this. The iconography in general is where this game suffers, I think, in its rules translation as you play. We'll get into that more, I think, when we talk about gameplay, but there's a lot of places where iconography is very confusing in this game.
Right, I think the iconography is not very straightforward, and I mean, there's some that are, but then there are some that aren't, and there's a lot of surprises where you told me stuff and I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. Like that doesn't make any sense based on the random symbols that are at the bottom of my page. Or bottom on my card. So I do think you're accurate. And I would almost put that a little bit more with rules because, but it may be critical to gameplay as well.
So I'm going to go ahead because of all of the issues, the fact that I don't know how many times we had to reference the rule book throughout the gameplay and had to try to sift through it to find everything. And it's like, I know I saw this. I was just looking at this. And it's like, you have to go back and it's like, there's 24 pages of going through it. And it's not logical where things are.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and give this probably a 5. I can't go any higher, I think. I mean, there's nothing wrong in the rulebook. There's things that feel like they're left out. It just could be clarified. It's definitely not clear, and it's missing, the iconography cheat sheets are desperately needed, and the iconography in general causes a lot of confusion because the victory points, they use the same symbology for combat points. I think that was a huge mistake in this game.
I think it's indicative, too, if you have 202 different threads on just rules clarifications, and we had a hard time finding a supposed rules FAQ, which we still couldn't find, but supposedly there's one out there, I think that's also kind of a negative on the rule book as well. So that many people have that many questions.
Yeah, so very clear. All right, so let's move on to the gameplay. So gameplay, you have your standard board. At the time, all these places are filled up. I've been able to remove.
And there's purple.
Things. There is purple. So right there makes me happy inside. All right. So basically, at the bottom of your board, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 actions that you can take. So you have the action. You have an upgrade that you could add to that action through different means. And then you have the bottom row that allows to kind of give you some free movement with your troops if you so choose. So basically, I do have my marker. This is a round 3 marker just because we've completed the game. But you know, you would typically have a 1 marker, which looks like this. Now I'm going to decide, I'm going to pick one of these locations, and that's the action I'm going to take. So the first action that I can take that's on this board is the deploy and get a military card. Now to deploy though, I actually have to have the resources needed to play one of my guys, which you started out the game with 5, and get them on the board, and you put them at the starting location. Now, I actually don't have the resources for that. Oh, and then I would gain a military card over here. I don't have the resources for that, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go end up to the painting. So you'll have the option. There are 3 different kinds of paintings, and you get to see 2 of each of them, and you get to pick one of them. Some of the costs are a resource, a specific resource, any resource, a blue science token,
assets,
golds. So just depending on,
some are free.
Yep,
some are free. Some are free. So just kind of keep that in mind. So you get to pick one of those. Most of them have a long-term ability. I don't know if there were any one-times. I didn't see any.
There's some, because like one gives you like a science resource, one gives you a building,
okay,
and then that's it.
So, but most of them have a long-term effect. So it kind of modifies and helps you through your gameplay. For example, one of my favorites was gold card equals science, because I needed that desperately.
Science is hard to get.
Yeah, so totally legit. All right. So that's that action. The other action I can take is the build action. Now I'm obviously going to have the resources, but the buildings I can build are up top of my player board with the cost associated with it. Now, you have to differentiate. So what you see at the top is what you get for building the building. So when you place the building, you put the resources on there. The second score after that is the actual cost, and it actually has the hammer next to it. And
it's specific to the era.
Yeah,
so that's the most important part.
There's also a victory point next to it that's on the actual tile itself, so you kind of don't keep track of that. You'll do that at the end of the game. And then the very bottom shows you the kind of tile that you have to place it on, unless you have something that allows you to bend those rules. Now, again, you're kind of having to guess. There are no cheat sheets to explain this in the rules. So for me, who doesn't listen to the rules when he reads the 20-some-odd pages, there was some guessing involved. And so there. So I would actually go into the middle, which kind of bugged me, because it's like, well, why don't you put the cost first? And then, I don't know, maybe I'm just weird. So you pay the cost. So in this case, let's just say I'm going to pay a wood to place a sugar cane field. I already have one out here. Haha. Okay, so then I'm going to place it down to an adjacent building that I already have, and then I'm going to load it up on resources. So it has 2 on the card. I have a special card that gives me 3, but I'm just going to put 2 down just because of this example.
And it specifically calls out that you have to build that one on a field. Mm-hmm. But you had a card to let you bend that rule, but in general, you would have to build that on a field.
Right. So I had a lot of things, a lot of rules. All right. And then the renovate. So over the course of period of time, I actually have used my resources. Hopefully that's the goal, right? To build stuff. And I want to
get some
more. So I'm going to end up having to pay a random of the basic resources, not science. And then I could fill back up. So I need some wood. So I paid a green. Got 2 wood now. So it only kind of nets you 1, but you at least get to trade some out.
You could technically use science, because you can trade gold as any for any resource. You can trade the science as anything. Science counts as gold or any other resource.
All right. So the next thing I could do is the manufacture. Now I can take some of my base goods and convert them. So I actually have now wood and a science. Then I'm going to remove this. Now I have a couple of options. So I can place it to get an upgrade of a particular action, or for my special ability, I can place it over here. Not everyone has that, but my special ability allows me to place over there, which gets me a science and a victory point back. All right. So that's that action. And then the next one is I can go to the harbor to get any resource of my choice, which I used quite a bit, just because of just needing stuff. All right, so you get harbor, you get a resource of your choice of the base, base 4. You do not get gold, you do not get science. It's sad. But there is an upgrade that lets you get the gold card, which, again, I used way too much. Sometimes I went to that space just for the gold card. Yeah. And then last action is to trade. So it has, you can change one resource into a gold. You can do 2 of some gold to get 2 in a card. So you've got a couple of options down below for that. I won't read them all out. So once I do that any of those actions, then I'm actually going to look down below and it will say, all right, I can, depending on the location, I can move one of my deploy to a gold spot for free. I am adjacent, so this guy's adjacent to a gold spot, so I'm going to move him here. But then it's the end of my turn, and I also get another free movement. Now, it doesn't matter where I go on this one, so I'm going to get a little bit closer because I want to defend my monastery in case he gets any ideas. He's getting a little too close for comfort.
And you can split it up and move that other movement with another, different one of your units. It doesn't have to be the same unit.
Right.
Correct.
And you can use it to explore because there's hidden tiles as well.
Right. So to do that, so basically you would go to the tile, you would flip it over. Sometimes there was battling necessary, which we'll talk about here in a second, or just free stuff. So I like free stuff. All right. Now, the one thing with the battling, so you have to have the amount of strength needed. So in this case, this one was worth 5. Now to do that, I had to have a cavalry of 3 and my monarch was worth 2 and I was able to defeat it. Now, how do I know what these different deployments were worth? My different units is they have a victory points mark.
The laurel.
The laurel. That is, well, it's over here too. It's all the same. So that's the actual strength of the unit. Okay. However, like for this one, so when you get those victory points at the end of the game, so when you remove stuff off, it exposes victory points. So obviously, the more you develop the board, the more victory points you get. However, this tile is different. So yes, it has 5 on here. That's the strength I need. So I need a 3 for my cavalry and 2 for my monarch. That's a total of 5. So I can defeat this. This is not worth 5 victory points. Even though it also uses a laurel around a 5.
Yeah.
But
it's a different color that you can't tell very well.
Yeah.
It's gray, not green, with a red flag behind it. I have my thoughts and feelings about this.
Yeah, this was very confusing. They use the victory points and the combat strength interchangeably in the way they've created the board. And it's very misleading. So, not to mention, those combat tiles are basically not as good as any of the other tiles because you have to take time and effort to defeat them to get a slightly better perk than just walking onto a tile.
So, for example, Randy had to come up with 6 combat to get
5 on one and 4 on another.
5 combat to get 2 resources, where I walked into a tile and got a free resource for nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and it's like, okay, this one took 5. I ended up, and I only got a gold card. I could have just went to the harbor.
Right.
So that's a little frustrating. I'm not going to lie. That is my biggest complaint of the game. Actually, probably my only real complaint, except for the fact that there's no cheat sheet, because cheat sheets are amazing. And I don't know why people don't do that now.
Well, I mean, the biggest complaint I have about it is the mechanics of this game are virtually identical to Scythe. So,
and I beg to differ because there's no tracks.
I understand your scoring. That we're talking about the mechanics. The board works identical to Scythe. When you enhance it, you take pieces from the top, you put them down at the bottom, and it gives you an upgrade on that action down there.
You can't do the same action multiple times in a row.
When you have resources, there's a little difference in the fact that you can store 5 on your board if you get them one way, but when you produce them, they're stored on the map where someone else can claim them by combat. Same exact system as Scythe. Scythe's rulebook is way better. It's much more refined than this game. This game felt very finicky as you went through the rules. There was a lot of things you had to stop and take a break and think, is this right? Is this not right? it's not clear. They could have made the boards much easier to read. They could have made the iconography much easier to read. It led to less enjoyment on my part. I would much rather have played Scythe. I know you're different. You don't like Scythe, but I feel like this, I feel like I played a game that I don't enjoy as much as Scythe and still have the same.
Well, so Scythe is different. There is no track going up tracks with this game. So I do think that is a difference. I also think that Scythe is different because there are certain scoring mechanisms that require you to attack. And in this case, so like, there is not a huge bonus for attacking in this game, where I feel that that's not the case for Scythe. So yes, there is attack. Now again, we didn't attack this game because people knew that Miranda would not enjoy it if we did.
And also there's map setups.
Yeah.
So the way Randy set up this map minimized combat.
Yeah.
But there's other map setups that could enhance or, almost require combat.
Yeah.
Right.
And we didn't play it that way.
Right. And that's something to keep in mind, because this would be probably the only way that I would like to play it, because I wouldn't like to do a lot of combat. So, but again, you're very hard pressed to get me in a game of Scythe. Like, there has to be desperation involved and some things.
Which Randy and I don't get. So we don't understand that.
But the thing is the combat system in this is very simple. You go in, you have more strength than the other player.
Equal or more.
Or equal or more. But you have combat cards. Whenever you deploy, you get one of these combat cards. And you can build up those combat cards and add them up to 3 of them to your fight. The defender then chooses what they're going to do as far as adding up to 3.
Mm-hmm.
You reveal whoever has the most. If there's a tie, defender wins. But basically very similar to combat and Scythe as well.
Right.
There you have the dial that you set and how much you're going to allocate. The good news is anything that you lose just goes back to your board. It doesn't take up and lose victory points.
And you can redeploy.
But it does mean you're going to have to take a lot of turns going back to deploy them back to the board again. But there's no cost to do it. So there's, it's not a huge penalty, although I took a card that let me get perks for removing one of my pieces, and I never really got it back on the board, and I needed it on the board as one of my qualifications for the final era. But so there's choices you make, and that was a bad choice on my part. Yeah. But yeah, all in all, I don't feel like this is as rewarding of a game to me as Scythe, but I know you differ on that.
So what's your score?
I'm probably at a 7, probably a 7.
What do you think?
Well, I definitely like Scythe better, but I don't want to take away from this game. This is still a good game. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
7's a good score.
It's very pretty. It's, in some ways it's prettier than Scythe because it's much more colorful and vibrant. I like the dark aspect of Scythe as well, but it's a
different aesthetic.
It really is. And I like the mechanics. I do agree. I wish it had not necessarily a cheat sheet, but just better, maybe graphic design for the iconography and how, especially with the point laurel versus combat. That's just a huge negative for me. So I think I would have been an 8.5, but I think I'm going to knock it down to an 8.
Yeah. I think I agree with you with an 8. I enjoyed this one. I would actually pick it up. Now, would I say something different if people were attacking me the whole time? Yeah, I would. But the way I played it, I think it's very functional. I think there's a lot of, a little bit of, engine building with the painting cards. But it felt good playing. For me, it was very rewarding because I could see myself building. I love character development. So by removing stuff off that board, I kind of got that character development feel because I'm, seeing my civilization improve. So I enjoyed it. So 8 for me. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We had an absolute blast.
At least we did.
Yeah, at least we did.
I didn't think it was bad. I mean, a 7's a good score. It was a good game.
I think Adam, he played with this. He liked it as well.
I think he gave it an 8.
Yeah, he gave it an 8 as well.
So. All right, guys. Well, hopefully you'll come and hang out with us again. We'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Bye.